going on, guys? This is Matt. Welcome to Hel Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks to our sponsor for all time, Cliff Nut Butter Bars. The only nut butter bars you should be putting in your mouth are Cliff Nut Butter Bars. There is no other semi-solid material that you should be putting in your mouth before going to a major HeroClix event. It gives you the energy to think, to remember those critical triggers all day long. The proof is in the pudding. Let's talk about real quick, and this might actually be quick because I really only have one main thing that I wanted just to bring to your attention, to your listening pleasure? Question mark. Let's go and find our tinfoil hats. Do you have yours? Because I already have mine on. Put yours on and walk with me for a moment as I tell you my latest theory. I believe that there was a recent ruling made in the official HeroClix forums. I believe one was made to quote unquote future proof a large number of game elements which are coming out in the next set. What do I mean? So let's dive into what was the ruling. What ruling am I talking about? I am talking, of course, of the Magneto ruling. It's not necessarily a ruling on the Magneto character itself. But again, I think because this ruling did confuse a lot of people, I feel it is confusing a lot of people. It's actually not a correct ruling. If if you're reading the words, this ruling is not correct. But why would WizKids be making an incorrect ruling? Well, I'll explain to you why I believe it's true, and you can agree or disagree, and hopefully you come up with an even more absurd conspiracy theory than I have. Let me read you the ruling that was made on Magneto. So the Magneto in question is the one from the Iconics line, the first appearance X-Men. He has a trait which reads telekinesis, then it has the double slash, so as a separate thing. As a power action, you can choose a square within range. You destroy all blocking terrain within 2 squares of the chosen square. Then you make a range attack, targeting all other characters within 2 squares of that chosen square. And then hit targets are dealt 3 damage instead of normal damage. Again, another double slash. It reads, if Magneto is 295 points, he activates the effects of this trait as free instead of power, both telekinesis and the power action. All right, so before we get into the question of this, let's just really key in onto what this ruling implies. I don't even know if it implies it. It's effectively an errata on the wording of that last bit, which is he, meaning Magneto, or just the character in question with this ability, activates the effect of this trait or of this ability as free instead of power. All right, so what would that mean both in English and in HeroClix language? Well, what that would mean to us is that, hey, normally, as telekinesis and this trait says, you would have to give them a power action to use this ability. But if they are, it says of Magneto's 295 points. So if they meet this condition, right? If A, then B. So Magneto's 295 points. That's the A. And what's B? Well, he activates the effects of this trait as free instead of power. Right? He does. That's just what he does. So you would think to yourself, oh, okay, well, that means that every time I use telekinesis or every time I want to use that other power action, I don't give them a power action. I give them a free action instead, because that's what it says. It says they activate the effects of this trait as free instead. All right. There's no choice to be made within the wording of that trait. But then we get into the question that this person posed, which says, if Magneto is 295 points, would he be able to activate telekinesis as a power action in addition to using it as a free action? Well, now, what did we just read? We just read if he is 295 points, right? Which is the same premise to the question that this person's asking. If Magneto is 295 points, it says, would he be able to activate it as a power? Well, let's read it. Would he be able to? Well, according to the power, it says he activates the effects of this trait as free instead of power. Does that tell you? Does that tell anybody that Magneto would be able to activate this as a power? So let's say, all right, I want to activate it as a power, but your reading goes, oh, well, actually, he activates it as free instead, and there is no option. How do we know there's no option? Well, because in the the diction, the lexicon, the whatever of HeroClix, the crux of an effect being optional is the word may. So what do we see? Well, what don't we see in this trait of Magneto's? We don't see the word may. The word may doesn't appear in this ability at all. Where would it have to appear? Where would we expect it to appear if Magneto would have the option to use this ability as a free action and or as a power action? I believe, and I think as most others that have played this game for any amount of time and are familiar with the rules around optional effects, you would expect the ability to read, if Magneto is 295 points, he may activate the effects of this trait as free instead of power. There you go. That would clearly indicate that there is a choice to be made when Magneto is activating the, either telekinesis or the other power action in that trait. Either one, you would have to dictate, I am activating this as a free versus I'm activating this as a power. But we don't see that. We don't see that. So clearly, the answer to this question, would he be able to activate telekinesis as a power in addition to using it as free? Clearly, the answer is no. You can't do that. Why? Because his effect doesn't give you the option to do that. It specifically says if you're 295 points, you use it as free instead of power. Period. Done. There is no choice in it. You just do the thing that it's telling you to do. So, of course, then WizKids, in their infinite wisdom, said, actually, no, you can. You can totally do that. And their actual answer was yes. Note that you could also activate the power effect as both a free action and a power action. And the power effect they're referring to is where he chooses a square, blows up all the blocking terrain, and then makes an attack against ideally multiple targets. But anyway, what they're saying here is that even though this effect, the way it's worded, doesn't provide you the option of using either of those abilities as a power action if Magneto's 295 points, even though it specifically says you can't do that anymore, you actually can. You can do it. So why would they do this? Why would they make this incorrect ruling instead of just providing an errata on this piece by saying that he may activate it as free instead of power if you want it. That would clearly fix this character. Um, so here's why I think this is true. I think it's true for two reasons. One is because Beetlejuice exists. And as we all know, Beetlejuice says that other characters can't be given free actions. And I don't believe that there's that many high level competitive games where somebody is playing Magneto at 295 points. But I think that that's one of their, I don't want to say, the goal of this incorrect ruling is to prevent Beetlejuice from removing, effectively removing abilities from characters that get better when they meet a condition normally. So Magneto meets this condition of being 295 points. Now his ability is better because he can use it as free. Beetlejuice being on the map would say, well, actually, you can't give a free action, and in your ability doesn't allow you to be given a power action either. So effectively, by me being Beetlejuice, by Beetlejuice being on the map, if Magneto's 295 points, he effectively loses that trait. He doesn't have it anymore. And that's no fun. I mean, I would agree with anybody that'd be like, huh, that's kind of sucks. Magneto can't do anything anymore. Like, yeah, pretty much. Pretty much the main reason why you're playing him at 295 points, if Beetlejuice is on the map, he loses that trait. And I think WizKids, not specifically for Magneto, but I think they know in the back of their mind that they're like, uh-oh, there's a lot of things coming out in the next set that we're trying to sell that have effects just like this. And what's the next set? The next set's Lantern Legacy, folks. What are they trying to push in this set? It's lantern rings. What effects do lantern rings have that are similar to this Magneto? Of course, it's the idea of them generating constructs, right? So let's take a look at an example. I'm looking at, and this is the Green Lantern ring, but I believe every ring has this exact same text at the end of their card, similar to Magneto, where it says, if this character has a listed keyword, the power effect is activated as a free instead. So very similar to Magneto. It's if a condition has been met, then the power is activated as free instead. Well, it's technically not worded exactly the same because they say the power is activated as free instead. Magneto says he activates it as free instead of power. So it's they just switched which action type is listed first in the effect, but that doesn't matter. They mean exactly the same thing, and both of them don't give you the option of activating the effect as a power action when the condition is met. It's not. It doesn't say if this character has a listed keyword, the power effect may be activated as a free instead. It doesn't say that. So, uh, again, why was this made? Well, not not going back to. It's not a fair comparison to compare to Magneto and say, oh, well, it's because they wanted Magneto to be able to activate this action twice per turn. I don't think that's what they were going for. Again, I think that ruling was made for these lantern rings because if it wasn't, the rules as written would state that if Beetlejuice is on the map and you are playing a lantern ring on a character that has a listed keyword, or you're giving that effect to a character with the listed keyword, from a battery or what, you know what I'm saying? There's come on, we all know things, so don't pretend that you don't. But uh If Beetlejuice is on the map, it would just effectively say that you cannot generate constructs because you can't be given a power action because the card specifically says you activate it as a free instead. It's not an optional effect. You have to activate it as a free instead, but you can't be given free actions because Beetlejuice. So ha ha ha. Virtually the entire set, the entire cool factor of the set that says constructs are back, rings are back. Hacha. A single character goes, no, no, you're not going to have any fun at all. So yes, I believe that this is why this incorrect ruling was made. I don't have really good evidence for believing this. In fact, I actually there's evidence in the contrary. For example, uh, how do I want to phrase this? So you could the argument is okay, they did this to protect the Green Lantern rings from Beetlejuice so that you could still generate a construct, though you would have to be given a power action instead of a free action. It's kind of more often than not that's a bad thing to do, but it's on the table. You know, it still allows you to do something. If uh, the other side of that argument is, well, why wouldn't they just errata all of these figures, such as the Magneto, and then errata all of the rings? Um, and I can see that argument, and I actually would prefer that they do this instead, because then the rules that we're reading on the card, post, after an errata would come in, they would be correct. So we wouldn't have to rely on an incorrect ruling such so that the game elements that WizKids is pumping out uh, act as intended. You know what I mean? This is totally we intend for a character to perform in a certain way, or this game element we want it to be able to do certain things, and we don't want it to be prevented from doing those things by any other game effect, basically just Beetlejuice. But it goes even further. I mean, you could say Beetlejuice. You could also say, Wakanda Hulkbuster. I mean, it goes beyond that. But it's Beetlejuice. Let's be real here. The the best example I can think of where WizKids did the right thing, uh, sweeping across all equipment that they printed in a given set, was for X of Swords. The sword, basically all of the sword equipment in X of Swords wasn't originally printed as a sword equipment, so there were a lot of other game effects that would uh, refer to sword equipment, and as printed, none of the equipment that came in the in that set qualified. So they had to go in and errata all of the equipment to be quote unquote as a sword equipment. So I don't know why they wouldn't prefer to do that, here with the lantern rings. And they could also do that with the Magneto. So let's be real. They could just stop forcing characters to use free actions in an effect. You know what I mean? I don't understand what the goal is. Um or really what the problem is, I should say, with just, you know, creating game effects with the knowledge that previous game elements that you created still exist. You know what I mean? Um, it's very easy. It seems it's very easy for the design team to not harken back to the years of old when Beetlejuice released, which wasn't that long ago, and think about, hey, does this effect still work if Beetlejuice is on the map? And if the answer is no, and then the follow-up question is, well, do we still want it to work even if Beetlejuice is on the map? If the answer to that is yes, just change the wording to these to these effects. Um, but you know what I mean? It would still, um, they could still say that, hey, you can use your old cards or you can use your old rings, but just it has this errata. You know, it doesn't. I say it cost them nothing to post an errata, but I don't know how much the intern would bill them for posting all of that text, which they would just have to, uh, they would have to copy and paste however many colored rings there are, and then put the word may in the power. Well, actually, no, they would have to erase the word is, and then they would have to put the words may be. So that it says the power action, or they would say the power effect is activated as free instead. They would have to say the power effect may be activated as free instead. So for however many rings there are, they would have to be deleting that many ises and then putting in that many maybes. So that's a lot of work. Plus copying and pasting all the just all the effects, and who knows where you could find those. I mean, there's only like a dozen different sites that you can find those things listed. Um, but that's really all I wanted to ramble on about today. So, do you think I am on the right track? Do you think that they have made this incorrect Magneto ruling to use as a reference point to continually make incorrect rulings on other effects that have similarly worded abilities, which there are quite a few of them coming up. And boy, would they hate to kill their sales of a set because they had to print Beetlejuice and they can't errata him for some reason. Hello? Hello? Can you errata Beetlejuice? And I'm not saying this because he's too strong. I'm saying this because global effects in HeroClix suck ass. They suck. Errata Beetlejuice, errata Bloodstone. These global effects don't need to work that way. They don't need to say that your opponent just can't do things. um, yeah, I don't know. They could errata Beetlejuice in so many different ways, but we're not talking about that today. We're not talking about that today. All I'm saying is that it's very clear that because Beetlejuice exists in the way that he does currently, without receiving an errata to his global other characters can't use free actions, that ability is, I can't use the word forcing because, as I've already explained, WizKids does have another option here by just making sweeping erratas. But it seems to have caused WizKids to make and stick by an incorrect ruling. So we'll see how long this incorrect ruling stays up. This isn't the first time that the Win has posted an incorrect ruling, but the last time that I remember them making one was about like a pulse wave question, I think, with Ghost Rider, the can use 048 Ghost Rider. And I think they incorrectly said that somebody could use an ability, blah blah blah, but it was like, no, actually they can't because he protects powers. He doesn't protect abilities. So if you can't use the ability that's giving you the power, then you can't use the power. But they incorrectly said that they still could, and then they, within a short period of time, I don't know how, if it was days, if it was hours, if it was whatever, they took it down, and then they reposted the correct answer. So they still haven't done that with Magneto. This this ruling, this this answer to this question was made about a week ago. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how long it stays. But here's what I can tell you for sure, and I can tell you this with a level of certainty that I haven't felt in a long time, and is that I am certain that whoever posted this ruling, they didn't have a Cliff Nut Butter bar. Because if they had a Cliff Nut bar, they would understand. They would have the brain power. They would have the mental fortitude to be able to read a sentence correctly, understand all of the words as they are written, and make a correct ruling, but they haven't. Fortunately, here at the Home Event League, we are sponsored by Cliff Nut Butter Bars. If only WizKids could do the same.